We are live, Toshiba.
Yay!
So good morning, everyone. As you are coming in, good morning. Happy Saturday. My name is Mrs. JSpire, and I am the host of JSpirations Live. Today we are Saturday sit down, and so we are going to give folks time to come in, but we are going to be starting shortly. If you're catching the replay, thank you so much for catching the replay. You can still comment and you can still interact with us as we will be going back and reading the comments. And responding, because this conversation today is all about friendship. It's about healing. It's about being healthy, both mentally and physically. And so we're going to have some good conversation today. As you come in,
Absolutely.
drop in the comments where you are listening from. Drop in the comments if this is the first time that you have joined us for a Saturday sit down. Just start dropping whatever you want to drop into the comments. We are thankful that you are here. We want to know that you are here. This is an interactive conversation today. So we want your comments. We want your hearts. We want your likes. We want your love. We want your interaction. Cornelia Stallings, Raleigh, North Carolina, is already in the house. Jamie Bailey, Creedmoor, North Carolina. She is already in the house. Ladies are up and we are ready. Make sure that you share this live. This is going to be a life-changing conversation today, and we are so excited. So, as the people say, come on in the room.
Come on in.
Come on in the room. We are waiting. We are ready. We are ready to. We're gonna get started, but we're not gonna get started too early because we want you folks to come in, and we want to make sure that you get every bit of what's gonna be laid before you today. Cornelia says my plate is ready for this good food. Come on. Come on in, you guys, and get your breakfast. Peggy Walker, Raleigh, North Carolina. The ladies of North Carolina is in the house and they are representing this morning. She was from North Carolina. I feel like I'm the only Virginian in here. Virginia, come on in the house. Come on in the house this morning. So Toshiba and I have already had such great conversation as we started to prepare for
Yeah.
this event. And I said, you know what? I should have recorded it because today I may not be any good as we are starting this conversation.
God always gives us fresh manna. It's okay.
Listen, listen, listen. All right, you guys. So as you're coming in, Lucy Hargrove Hudson is in the house this morning. Nelson County. So Virginia has showed up. Virginia is in the house this morning. So listen, we're gonna go ahead and get started. Just please be sure. I see a couple other folks are watching. Don't be shy this morning. Please jump into the comments. We want to have a really good conversation. Make sure, ladies, that you have shared this event this morning and that you have invited someone to join us. As I always say, do not keep all of this Jspiration to yourself. And this morning we have some rice that we're gonna be serving up. So don't y'all keep all this good food to yourself. So again, if you are just joining, my name is Joe Shalon, aka Mrs. J Spire, and I am the creator and host of Jspiration Live. We broadcast every Friday night at 8 o'clock p.m. for Fill Up Friday Live, and throughout the months we're having different guests on because we have a lot to talk about. Jspirations Live is real talk with real people. So welcome. This morning we have a special guest in the building. I am so excited to have our guest with us. A few years ago, she and I had actually talked about her coming on the show, and we didn't get the opportunity to do that. And now I know why. It's because it was not time. Today, right now, May the 27th, 9:30 a.m. in 2023. This is the time that was ordained for us to be together, to be able to talk and be transparent and sow seeds. We have had some things, some crazy things going on in our lives the last year and a half, but God has been faithful. And so today, you guys are looking at the grace of God on the screen. You're looking at the strength of God, the love of God, the resiliency of
Mm,
God, the promises of God. Two women who have gone through a lot, but yet and still here we are, being who God has called us to be, sharing what God has called us to share, and doing what God has ordained for this very moment. Sheila and I, we met years and years ago.
oh yeah.
I'll go ahead and I'll say we were children, right? Because we were like much younger then and we were all in different places. And we never know why we meet and engage with each other, why we become family, but God always knows. So you guys, this morning, we have Toshiba Rice with us, aka T Rice. She is the founding principal wellness consultant of I'm Well, and she is the senior pastor of Greater Faith Raleigh in Raleigh, North Carolina. T. Rice says, as a pastor, seeing people embrace therapy and faith aligns with accepting things God has given us pertaining to life and godliness. Toshiba is a champion for mental health and substance abuse and a certified mental health first aid trainer. I bet you guys did not know that someone like that exists, but she's here with us today. T. Rice brings light, hope, and a path forward to wellness when you have a Toshiba Rice experience. Toshiba, welcome to JSpirations Live.
Oh my goodness, I am ecstatic to be here this morning. I already get up early as it is, but it's nice to get up early with a purpose to actually put on some clothes. So on a Saturday, on an early Saturday morning, so I'm thankful for the invitation. I'm thankful. Just I was telling someone recently, anytime anyone allows you to be in their space, to be a part of their life, it is a privilege. It is an honor to do so. And so to me, I just see it as an honor and privilege for the people that sharing their time and their space and you to just be in your orbit. And so for me, I'm thankful.
Listen, I'm so thankful. I'm so excited about this conversation. For people who know me, they this morning I'm actually at a loss for words. I've been saying, God, like, where do you want us to start? What do you want us to do? Because we had such a great meet and greet earlier this week, just talking about what we were going to do for the show. And if you know Toshiba and then you know me, like, we try to prepare, but it is what it is. It's whatever that's supposed to go out there. But Toshiba, this month is Mental Health Awareness Month. Mental health has been, especially sometimes in our culture, it's been something that we shy away from. It's been
Hmm.
something that we don't talk about a lot. But over the last, I don't know, maybe 10 years, maybe it's really been coming to the forefront. And thankfully, it's been coming to the forefront in our community as well. So I
Hmm.
want to start off by just, asking you and allowing you to tell the people, what is mental health?
Wow. So mental health, that's a very, very good question. And so mental health has some particular components to it. And so sometimes people automatically think about mental health is someone with a mental health disorder. But no, mental health is just about how we take care of our minds, how we take care of our thought processes, our emotions, and our feelings. And so there's a difference between mental health and then a mental health disorder, right? Or a mental health challenge or a mental health issue. And so the first thing that people have to do is to just embrace that part right there is that the mind is a part of the body, and so we talk about it as called mental wellness or mental health. And so we really have to look at it as just that. It is how am I processing my thoughts? How am I processing my emotions? And so that's what we're talking about with mental health. Because someone who can have a mental health disorder can actually have good mental health. And then someone who doesn't have a mental health disorder can actually have not so great mental health.
And I
So I hope that
love it.
makes sense.
It does make sense. And I'm glad that you said that, because I tell people all the time, like, mental health can be something that's healthy and this can be something that's unhealthy, because we all have it. And I'm glad that you said that the mind is a part of the body, because sometimes we think about everything else. We think about, if my leg hurts, I'm going to the doctor. If my stomach hurts, I'm going to the doctor. If something happens, I need to do something. But when we start to think about our thoughts and we start to think about our emotions and the way that we're feeling, sometimes we leave
Yeah.
that by the wayside. And if we don't take care of our mind, then how are we to take care of the rest of our body?
Right. I think people forget, Jay Spurgeon, I think what people forget a lot is this one organ, right? If I take this away, what can the rest of the body even do?
Mm,
If this is always in a state of confusion, frustration, anger, or even in a place of you can be in, sometimes people can be in so much joy, and not that joy is a bad thing, but sometimes people can be in such an orbit that they don't even understand what's going on around them, that someone else might be hurting, or someone else might need someone to show them some empathy. But I try to remind people that if your mind is not in a place of stability,
mm.
then your life is not in a place of stability, right? Because if you're worried all the time, if simplest things stress you, how do you process that? And how do we deal with it? And I can tell you, even being a faith person, honey, you can be challenged in that mind. You can be challenged deeply in that mind.
The other day, and I think I shared this with you, but the other day I told you I woke up, and I felt like I had a million things on my mind the other day. And so because of that, I felt like I was so out of sorts. I changed clothes 5 or 6 times before I left out the house. I felt like I was just so overwhelmed, and I felt good in my body, right? There
Yeah,
was nothing going on in my body, those other parts, but my brain, my mind was so cluttered. So, what you're saying, there was no clarity in there. And so we have to take care of that, because the body does what the mind tells it to do, right? So even though my body
absolutely.
felt good, but my mind was cluttered, so I couldn't get my body out the door, right?
Right.
Because there was too much going on in my mind. Um, One of the things, and I didn't hear this growing up, because we didn't talk about mental health, growing up as a child. And when I became an adult, I used to hear things like, Black people don't go to therapy. We don't go to therapy. That's not something that we do. What happens in our home stays in our home. And so a lot of us have grown up not expressing our feelings, not sharing how we feel, not reaching out to our resources. I want to talk a
Mm-hmm.
little bit about that, because of that stigma that we have, not only in the Black community, but it's in the world. It's in so many communities that we don't talk about things that we feel. We don't talk about things that happen. Can you speak to that, because I think it's important?
That's a very truthful statement that you make. I think I can even go a little deeper and say I don't even think that it was even said that Black people don't go to therapy in my house. It was just something that just wasn't talked about. Period. I didn't even know that was a real thing. But yet there were mental health challenges all around us. I witnessed as a young girl a family member in a mental health crisis, and I didn't know what that was at the time. No one ever even talked about it. We just knew it was something that was going on, and I actually got to see it unfold in front of my eyes in reference to another small child that was involved. And it blew my mind to see someone that out of control. And
Mm,
when I say out of control, not that they were wild or anything like that, but their thought process and what they wanted this small child to do, because of their mental thoughts and mental processes. Later, I learned that that family member actually was living with bipolar disorder, and I did not
mm,
know even the name of what they were going through. So it wasn't even something that there was a conversation around, so that we could all talk about it and say, hey guys, this is what happened to, family member, da 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 da. And so it is something that we shy away from. Had I kind of probably known the name of it, I might have would have did some things a little different in my life. I don't know how much time we have
No, it's
around that,
and
but
I know
I
we
was
didn't talk about talking about this, but I thought about it this morning, right? Like I thought about thinking back on some of my family members, like you are, and thinking about some of the things that I observed. And when I went off to college, I studied sociology, right? Because I thought it was going to be easy. But when I started studying it, I started
study of families, right?
right, I started thinking about things that had happened in my family, and it actually it gave me a level of understanding that I didn't have before, and it gave me the ability to start understanding and actually start to forgiving people because
Ah,
of the
look at
way
there.
that the things that they were doing, not enabling them or not saying it was right, the things that they were doing or how they did things, but understanding why they were doing things, because there was some mental health concerns and they could have benefited from therapy, right? And I started
Absolutely.
thinking about, we learned about the human mind and we learned about relationships, all those things that we didn't talk about as children. And so started
Mm-hmm.
to study it, I'm like, I was able to give myself a level of freedom because I was able to forgive that person because he wasn't that way because he wanted to, like he just wanted to
Right.
be. It's because that's who he was, and
Right.
there was some turmoil in his space that he didn't know how to deal with.
Absolutely. And Jake, and it's okay. And that's the thing that it is okay. The one thing that I tell people is you can't help the mind that God gave you, right? We're born the way we are born. But however, there are things in the earth that we've been equipped with to help us depending on the types of challenges we may face after we've been born. And so when we talk about these communities who won't share about what's going on in the family and helping everyone understand it. We can go as far as just grief, just the basics of grief. How many people have died in folks' family that have been a brother, a sister, a spouse, a child? But we never think that these people need to see therapy and that they're still grieving. And some family members and parents have things in their homes or whatever that they can't move forward, and not necessarily let go, but be able to still live. And some people have certain rituals they might do with their family members
Mhm.
that are no longer among us. And so there is therapy that is needed, and there is a conversation around mental health. Let's talk about the guilt trips that sometimes parents will lay on children. That's not healthy, right?
Right.
All these things are mental health related, that it makes you look at who you are later in life. If you're told that you're not good enough, if you're told
Mhm.
you need to fix this because you don't look like, these are things that affect people's mental health that cause them to live in depression. One of the things that we talk about, or one of the things that I train to help in parenting classes, is you talk about adverse childhood experiences, and we call
Mhm.
it ACEs. And
It's
so a lot of times these adverse childhood experiences are families that you've lived, children who have had mental health, live with a person living with mental health, living with alcoholism, living with a death, or any type of traumatic experience that has happened to a child. Science has found that it biologically shows up in people's lives in
mm,
forms of illnesses later down the road. I say one thing: I have two family members. One is my mother, and one is my very, very close family member. That's my cousin. I said, hey, I really believe that the reason why your body goes through what it's going through and it has um, some illnesses to it is because how I watched you were beat as a child,
mm,
right? We don't think about those types of things. We don't think about the abuse that happened because that's what we do. Or in this church world, we say, spare the rod, spoil the child. It does not mean beat on your children.
right. Right. Oh
right?
goodness,
And so
Judy.
we
There's so
show
many
that, and that stuff
conversations inside of
shows
these
up.
conversations.
I'm sorry, but it shows up in people's mental health, and people are hurting and physically in the mind because what's physically been done to them as small
Hmm.
children. Right? I had to learn at an early age that hitting on my children is not what you should do, and there are other methods in which you can teach your children and to do better. My youngest child never had a spanking a day in his life. Boy, he acts better than all the ones. Thank you. And he thinks about his choices. But I'm not. We're not going there. But I'm
No,
just
but
saying
but we
these things
can.
play in mental health.
But we need, I'm glad that you brought it up because I'm a, a parent educator as well, and working with so many different cultures and working with so many generations of families. And I'm glad you brought up aces too. We're not going to go into like all the aces, but if you get the opportunity, and Cornelia Stallings, we see your questions, we see your
Yes,
comments, we're going to come
and
back
she
to
said
them.
struggling to
Um,
overthinking. Oh, you got to talk about that.
well, we're going to come back to those, but like, the aces opens up. If you guys aren't aware of what the aces is, go online and take a look at it. You can even take some of those tests for yourself to kind of
Mm-hmm.
see, where you are and what
What's
you're
it
struggling
for?
with, because the first thing is to be open and honest with ourselves, right? That's the way that we start to move forward. But there are some childhood things that we have experienced, and there's things that, generations and generations, we carry it over, and spanking is one of those things. But we'll talk about that later. But those things produce trauma, right? And then it brings about generational curses, and then we bring those things into the next generation, the next generation, the next generation, and all those feelings and the hurt and the trauma, it produces all the clutter in your
It
mind.
does.
You guys, it is Mental Health Awareness Month, and we want to make you aware of the things that people are struggling with, the things that you may be struggling with, because this year is about walking in freedom, right? It's about walking
Mm-hmm.
in healing. If we open our hearts and we open our minds and allow God to come in, He is a healer, and He is a healer of the mind. The Bible says that He wants
Absolutely.
to renew it. But I want, so she would say, come on, let's go into this. So Cornelia said, and you guys, we're just going to be talking today. We don't have any form, any fashion. We have lots of topics.
Oh yeah.
But Cornelia said, I struggle with overthinking, how to fix everything that I feel is broken. It becomes a cycle you can't get out of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she would speak to that.
I and I think that comment was posted when we were talking about childhood things, and we're struggling. So what I hear is trust. We overthink things when we don't trust either who we are or the process in which we've been given to do something.
Mm,
And because I find myself having to um, fight off that thought process. Sometimes it's known as an imposter syndrome, right? To think that, oh, should I do this? Really, oh, am I able to do that? Am I good enough to do that? Will it make sense? Will anybody participate or want to be a part of? And so when we think about this overthinking, what I found for me is that I have to take breath and I relax, and then I remember who gave me the plan to do what I need to do in the first place.
mm,
Most of the time, 9 times out of 10, is God. so, and so, therefore, I no longer have to take ownership of it, right? I no longer have to take, it's not mine. I'm just a part of someone else's plan. And so I'm
mm,
just enjoying the plan as it folds out. And so a lot of times the way that I calm my mind is to remember it's not my plan. It's not my reputation on the line. It's his. And the one thing I know about him is he does not fail.
mm.
And he tells me I cannot fail and I will not fail because I'm in him. And so I utilize those principles to help me stop overthinking, because overthinking can cause procrastination in a thing. It can cause us to not really give it our all or move in the full innovation that really and truthfully is what we should be doing. So I hope that makes sense.
And I mean,
And
I
that's a
wanted
thought.
to, always transparent moment. Cornelia, that's my sister, and so when she posts
Am I
that,
amazing That was my friend.
And she was an amazing friend. Okay. But just reading the comments, it says I struggle with overthinking. How to fix everything that I feel is broken. It becomes a cycle you can't get out of. And so that's my sister, and we think a lot alike a lot of times, right? And so we are over analytical people, right? And not only are we over analytical, but we are helpers, and so we are fixers. But what I
Hmm.
have learned, especially in over the year and a half of my life, is that I cannot fix everything. And not only can I not fix it, but it's also not my responsibility, right?
Ah,
I'm
yes.
learning to know what my capacity is, right? And even though I am enough, even though I am worthy because of who God is in me, it is not my responsibility. And I don't have that authority. And I don't know, I have the authority that He's given me. I know He's given me authority over all things, He's given me the power of all things. But like you said, like, it's not my reputation. I like that you said that it's not my reputation that's on the line. The ability to fix what's broken, it belongs to God, right? He
Hmm.
gives us he does give us power and authority, but I don't want that. Like whatever is broken, because I'm not the potter, right?
Right.
Like I'm not the potter, and so He's the only one that can put whatever is broken back together again so that it doesn't break anymore, because we can't even find all the pieces, right?
Come on
When a
now.
glass breaks and it shatters, we are cleaning up glass day after day after day, and it could be a month and you find that piece of glass, and it's because we can't find all the pieces. Only He can find all the pieces. So Cornelia, I tell you today to let that responsibility of thinking that you can't fix it. We can't
Hmm.
fix it. Only God can fix what's broken. And when He fixes it, then it's truly right, it's
Right.
put back together again. So let that
Right.
responsibility go, and do what you tell other people to do. What do you say? To pray and to let God have His way, because He's in charge and He's in control. And that's one thing that I'm learning to try to do, to not tell people what I can't live, right? We need to be able to speak it, and then we need to be able to do the same things for our lives. But because we want to be fixers and we think that we are fixers,
Yes.
then we keep trying to do that.
So you're right. And so my so my life experience lesson in trying to be the fixer was when I had a spiritual awakening from God that was like, well, I thought I was the savior. I thought I already did that. It's when my brain realized, okay, whether it's the people or community or family and folks around me, I'm blessed to have people that'll come and ask a thing of me. But we can get into this fixer mode, right? Or and so what I had to learn is that they already have a savior. They already have someone that's able to fix it. And so I'll be teaching a part of the series of someone else that's doing an event that's called I'll be speaking on this presentation that I'm doing that's called A Woman's Guide to Moving Forward, Grace
Mm,
to Let Go. Um, and live on purpose. And so that's the piece that I wanted to talk about. It's about that grace to let go, the grace to let people go, because a lot of times we don't show ourselves grace as women, as people, right? We won't show ourselves grace to let things go that we can't control. We feel like we still have to try to fix it. We feel like, have we given it our all? Have we
mhm,
exhausted every possibility? Maybe if I try this, maybe if I do that, maybe if I stop doing this or stop doing that, versus recognizing that the same um, God or the same principles or the same practical skills that I can use to better me or for me to move forward or for me to progress, right? It's the same practical skills and God and things that another person has the same options to use. But
mhm.
we have to give ourselves grace to let folks go and to let situations go.
It's I'm telling you, and trying to figure out if I want to go there now, but I'm gonna go ahead. I'm gonna go there because this is JSpire Live, Saturday sit down, real life, real talk. We're just talking today. And so as you're coming in, we may jump from topic to topic, and it's because it's all about good and real conversation today. Sheba, when we were talking, I'm gonna go back a little bit, but we were talking, it's all relevant. But you said, and I'm just going to paraphrase it, but we were talking about therapy, right? And we were talking about faith and relationship with God, and we were talking about how some folks will say, "Pray about it," and I'm gonna leave it alone. And you said something like, "Get tools." Get the tools that's there, plus combining the principles of faith. And I probably messed that all up, but you'll fix it for me.
No, you're right. So here's the thing. One of my mentors, and I'm a part of a brainchild that she's created called Village of Care, right? And what we do in this Village of Care is we offer resources and we educate and we teach people how to actually be the resource that the community needs. This person, Betty Murchison, says, I get really frustrated with people of faith when things happen or trauma happens and say, well, we're going to pray for you. It does not absolve you from helping. People need tools. People need your support, right? So it's not just prayer alone. I can tell you something. Why? And I'll bring you to the same scriptures. Faith without what?
Works.
Is what?
Dead.
And we want people to live, right?
That's good.
So in other words, we need faith and tools. We need faith and works, right? So our faith alone is not what is required. We also have to put in some work. And so I did, and one of the things that I do in business is called a Faith Impact Summit that we put on every year in the month of May. And so in this Faith Impact Summit, the first one we did, which was last year, we had Dr. Hara Cohen of Duke University, who founded the Institute of Theologically Spirituality and Health. And he's written over 40 books, and he has written tons of books, white pages. He's a doctor across the world. And he came and he basically told us faith is good, right? And data shows us that if you are a person that's struggling in your mental health, and if you're a person who's struggling with the substance use, if you're a person who has struggles, if you bring faith into it, it makes you better in recovery. It makes you better in being resilient. But here's the thing. You have to have some skills to align with your faith. God tells us to get knowledge, and in all thy getting understanding. He tells us to get wisdom and ask it of him. And wisdom says that I have given you everything pertaining to two factors, life and godliness. So that tells me God knows that there's some practical things I need to know, and I also need to keep him in the forefront of my life. But what I'm sharing and what I know is that when you have skills of a thing, you can merge those skills with your faith and put prayer on the skills. I tell people all the time, it's okay to live with a mental illness. Honey, let me tell you something. And this is from the hat of Pastor Toshiba. I'm giving you permission. Pill and a prayer is okay. You need a pill and a prayer. Take your mental health medication if you need to. Pray over your mental health medication if you need to, and say, Lord, whatever this medicine is supposed to do that can help me, God, allow it to help me so I can be the best version of me, so I can live on purpose, so I can be free in my mind, so I can have satisfying relationships. We can't do it if we're jumbled and mumbled and all messed up inside. And then we as faith people cannot hold people hostage and tell these folks that they cannot take medication. It is not truth.
Because we take it for everything else, right? We take it for everything. We take it for everything else. My pastor always says, and this is the thing, right? So, and my pastor says, God is our source, but he gives us resources, right? Use the resources that God has
Absolutely.
given us. Do we not
Absolutely.
think that these doctors, they're not doctors just because they're doctors. They're not able to operate on the body just because they're able to operate on the body. They didn't give themselves those skills. That's a skill that God gave them. Nobody else could give that to them because this is his body, right? So he's giving people those skills to be able to help. There's a resource. I'm so
There's
glad you
yeah.
said that. Put prayer on the skills. You guys, I dropped that in the comments. That's something that I want you to write it on your mirror. It's an affirmation over your life. Put it in your car. Put prayer on the skills. I like that, Toshiba.
Yeah, we have to. I mean, I lived with a man for almost 20 years with a severe mental illness. Lived, meaning married. Okay, just in case y'all get it twisted. But I'm not
Don't
judging
get it
what you do.
twisted, y'all.
Okay, I'm not judging what you do. But I'm just saying so you don't think that's what I had going on. But the point of the matter is, I had to use my faith and I had to learn some practical skills on how to support this person living with a mental illness, a severe mental illness at that cost us so much. That's a
Mm,
whole nother story of my journey. And so, what I'm telling you, I'm not talking about things that is not of lived experience. I'm not talking about where I just went and learned and trained in something, but I don't know anything about it in the practical world. I'm not talking about something that I only have lived experience with, but don't have any training with. I applied my faith, and I'm going to go deeper with you. I applied my faith and skills to my own mental health when thoughts of completing suicide were
mm.
there because life became so overwhelming with living with someone with a mental illness, with your children living with a mental illness, community pulling on you, faith pulling on you, and then you're having to take care of yourself.
Faith walk.
And it's a real one. And so you have to, because I have skills, one of the things I can say that I don't know if you've even ready to go there, but it is because of the skills that I had that I merged with my faith that I was able to be resilient from my son's death
Hmm.
as well as recover. Literally, I literally people have been saying it for a moment, Jay, but I literally just realized it looking through some pictures the other day. I literally just realized when my friends tell me I actually ran a political campaign for the city of Raleigh, right, for mayor. My son died January 14th, 2022. I'm working in a campaign in February,
Mm.
March, all the way till November because it was campaign season. And everybody kept saying, "How are you doing this? How are you doing this?" It didn't even dawn on me that everything was that close and aligned,
Mm-hmm.
that I was still moving in life, not faking it, because I would enter my meetings with business that were virtual or with my consultants and have my onboarding consulting meetings or having a staff meeting. And there were days, even meetings with people who were partners, that if my day was not well, I would get on there with a disclaimer and say, guys, I just need you to understand if I go off screen or if you see me quiet, it is not because I am not in tune.
Mm-hmm.
Today is an emotional day for me. I recently lost my son and I'm having a moment of grief. And it was like, wow. And not only that, I shared my grief plan when he originally died on Facebook because the calls and everything was so overwhelming. The love was so outpouring. I couldn't contain all the love that was being shared with me. And so I had to share what my plan was. It was
Mm.
not that I leaned on my faith and words alone or scripture alone. It is that he told me to put into action what my faith really was. And what I did was put into action with the skills that I had with my faith. And it has allowed me to be on this screen with you today. It allows me to talk in public and speak up and speak out about my son, how he died. It allows me to live every day Sometimes I might cry, sometimes I might not. But I be me. I stand
Mm.
in my truth and I say one thing, I live my brand, honey. I live my brand.
We gonna talk about. Listen, y'all. Sheba taking us all over the place, and now my brain is sitting here and it's going this way. Listen, I'm trying to figure out which way to go. I told her the other day. I said you can just have a show. I'm gonna just sit here like Camilla said earlier. She had her plate ready. I was like, I'm just gonna sit here and just put the food on my plate. So yes, I'm Mrs. JSpire. This is my show, but this is Sheba Rice, y'all. T Rice is in the house.
No, this is not a Talking with T Rice series, but we
Listen,
actually are
we're gonna
talking
talk
with T
about
Rice.
talking with T Rice. But so Sheba went there and she started to share the story, of her son's death and how she's been walking through it. And that's one of the things that we talked about. And I'm so thankful to be on the screen with her today. Yes, it's not talking with T Rice, but it's talking with T Rice. Toshiba and I, we both we had some trauma over the last year and a half, right? 2 years. Life has been lifing. And I lost my husband and I wasn't quite sure how I was going. So I'm listening to Sheba's story, right? You just kind of bounce back and keep going. I think I went back to work about 3 weeks later. The week after the funeral, I had a speaking engagement and everybody was like, we can reschedule it. And I was like, no, I'm going to do it. But the transparency of being able to say, listen, 15 minutes before it's time for me to get on camera, like there were tears, but it was the push through
Mm-hmm.
of resiliency, and it was
Yeah.
the knowing that things that we had already started together, that what I was doing was purposeful, right? That it was meaningful. It was things that we had worked for, and God had already started preparing me for all these things when I didn't even know I was in preparation for it, right? Like you mentioned the word resiliency, right?
Mm-hmm.
I had never really thought about that word. My word in my brain growing up, because my mom did everything, right? She was the woman that took care of everything in our house. She took care of everything
Oh.
outside of our house. I lived around people who had single moms, and women were just doing it, right? They were doing everything. So I grew up in that mind, even though my mom didn't use this word. But as I got older, I just wanted to be the strong Black woman, right?
Mm.
Talk about that strong Black woman syndrome, but I wanted to be the strong Black woman. I remember when we got married, my husband said, if you're gonna just do everything, what do you need me for? And I'm looking at him like because I can do it, but I didn't have to do it anymore. I didn't need to do it anymore. But about in 2020, God started, my first lady actually said something about resiliency. And then when she said it, God just kept bringing it back to me and back to me and back to me. And I started talking about it all the time. I would put it in my poems. It was just here, it was there, it was everywhere, right? And so after my husband died, God brought it back to me that the resiliency, that we are resilient. You would have those moments on camera. I would have those moments before going to work, before getting on camera, cry all the way home after dropping my son off from school, cry all
Mm-hmm.
day. But I was resilient. And I thank God for the fact that I understood my capacity and I knew that I could cry and I could fall out and I could have my emotions, but I would not stay down. I would be resilient. And every single day, I would keep getting up and doing what I needed to do. But what it did was bring my relationship with Him closer,
Mm-hmm.
knowing
Mm.
that I was resilient and that I am resilient because of His strength. Grief is something else, right? Grief can take you out, right? There are days where
Listen,
you're thinking to
this is a little
yourself,
sad. Yes, grief is something else.
listen, grief is something else. It's days where, and it's not necessarily that you want to hurt yourself, but you don't think that you can make it.
Yeah,
You don't think that you could do it,
I
right?
get
You're
it. I
so
get it.
broken. And Cornelia said brokenness, but nobody around you can fix you,
Mm.
right? You feel so broken,
Tell
but it
the
doesn't.
truth.
People can say things, people are loving on you and you love it. People are calling and texting and bringing food and coming by, and you're thankful for it all. But it's those midnight, It's those 2 o'clocks in the morning, those 4 o'clock in the morning when there is nobody there with you. And that's where the real healing comes in. And the strength of God comes in to allow you to get up the next day with a smile that isn't hard for you to put on. It just comes
Right.
naturally because he's giving it
Absolutely.
to you. Man, listen.
Absolutely. Listen, we talked about this. So here's the thing, right? That people, we talked about this mind. We're talking about mental health still, right? But
Right.
here's the thing
Y'all, we
around
still talking
grief,
about mental health.
right? Here's the thing that people have to understand about grief, or have to understand about death, is really what I'm trying to say. Death is a part of life. And when you can transition your mind to understand that as surely as you live, you must die. And so what happens is that people a lot of times will be so overwhelmed with, oh, they're gone, but they were born and they have to die. The challenge that my mother always said, you just don't know when, you don't know where, and you don't know how. That's the mystery of the thing. So I never questioned God about why he did. I don't control that. So I stay in lanes to keep my perfect peace, right? My mindset. I don't go down rabbit holes. That's just something I don't do. And that's another thing that I try to share and when I consult with people around needing support. I don't go down rabbit holes. The things that God has already told me, don't do that, because that's not going to be healthy for you. So I leave it alone. I said, oh wow, wasn't expecting this story to end like that so quickly. I said, okay though, but I do have challenges around the how. It's hurtful. My hurt is around the how he died. Not even why or when, right? That was his time. That was the plan. But even in his death, he taught me so much, just the same way as he did in his life, right? And I appreciate it and I love it. But what helped me and what people didn't understand is that I didn't have problems with death. A lot of times people have problems with death is the reason why it can be hard for them to move forward or be resilient. And so the resiliency piece that I love that you talked about, Joe, is key to all of it, right? Even the scriptures tells us that a wise man, see, you ain't got to be not so wise, but he says a wise man falls 7 times and get their happy self right on back up again. That is what makes us amazing. It's our faith and our resiliency. So it's not about being perfect. And that's the piece that we have to remove ourselves from. Stop trying to move to perfection. Move in resilience. I help people create resiliency plans, recovery plans, right? And it was because I had a resiliency plan in place just in case one of my children died, I was able to move a little bit better than most.
Can you go into detail about that? Because when you talked about that when we was prepping, I was amazed. When like because I had never really thought about that. Is that you talked about that and then you talked about like after he passed and how you set boundaries. Right, for yourself.
Yeah.
Talk about that. And I want you guys to really listen to this because this is not something that we do. But when Sheba was talking about it, it was so healthy. Like I talk about it.
So first of all, you got to understand the 8 dimensions of wellness, right? So you've got, what is that? Emotional, physical, financial, intellectual, environmental, occupational, spiritual, and social. So my focus and within my plan of care for my physical. So I have resiliency plans for these areas of my life, meaning what happens if this happens, right? So in the physical, right now, I'm working on becoming well, right, with my physical health, right? I'm a little obese. I need to work on it, and I've got folks around me that's drilling it on in. So, right, but not only
I got one too. She's my mama.
my best friend runs 6 miles a day and rides a bike for 14, and she calls me and is like, "Are you ready?" I'm like, and that's and so, but not only that, with that natural physical body, what else does the body have to do? The body also deteriorates. The body also goes into a place of death, that it leaves its life, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so there are plans that you have to put in place. People should have their last will and testament, their healthcare directives. They should have their power of attorney, healthcare power of attorney. All these things are part of planning
Mm-hmm.
for physical wellness, right? From life to death, because the physical body does those two things. They live and it dies,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so with that, we've always in my family talked about death because we talk about the resurrection of life with Christ, right?
Mm-hmm.
So how do you not talk about death? It's not a
But
bad
you know
thing.
what? I'm gonna be honest. Like I've missed that part, right? Because people talk about somebody's gonna die, but and we're talking about the resurrection, but so many people miss the middle, and I know I have.
Yeah.
I didn't want to talk about it.
So death is not a bad thing. It's not a fair thing because if I live, I have Christ. If I die, I get gain, honey. I move into eternity. Everything we do in this earth, which is why we have to live our life on purpose, right?
Mm-hmm.
We don't live our life for people. And that's the lesson that I learned when my child died. Here I am working business to try to leave an inheritance for my children's children, like the scriptures say. And really and truthfully, I needed to make sure I was doing what I was doing because Toshiba enjoys it. Toshiba wants the lifestyle she wants to live. Because what happens when the children are dying before you can leave the inheritance?
Mm-hmm. Woo!
Anyway, back to
Back to
resiliency.
it.
So basically, in my plan, for in case anything goes wrong, I have tenants. So what happens if my child died? We already knew we didn't do funerals. We don't want my family knows. So anybody that knows me and hear it right now, if I leave this earth, please do not bother my children and don't you say one word to them because they have specific instructions from their mother that there is no memorial.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not putting all that money in the ground. These are my thoughts. These are my processes, right? I tell them to share. You can cremate me and you can say to me goodbye. Because my philosophy is if you didn't tell me you loved me when I was in this earth, then you don't need to tell me and I can't hear you now.
You can't hear it. Mm-hmm.
I can't hear. So those are people's preferences. But I'm not telling you how to write your death plan. I'm
Right.
talking about mine. And
Right.
so my family knows there is no memorial. It's not necessary. Because let me tell you something. To have to deal with the pain of that close loved one leaving you is enough.
Mm-hmm.
To ask me, and what I did, my son had a website that I created for him. Why? Because he's young and has a lot of friends, right? And people know him and things like that. And I had a lot of family and friends. So I had to do something that allowed people to get information and resources, right, about
Mm-hmm.
what I had going on that loved me. We had a website. That website was there for you to find anything you needed to know about dealing with the family or the funeral. But most importantly, to share where the website is, I posted on social media for people. I gave them the time. And meanwhile, my child's body hadn't even been released yet. So we
Mm-hmm.
won't finna drag me along until the body is released to deal with this because that's not how I function. Because I want to enjoy life and I want to be more happy. I don't want to focus on that alone. And
Mm-hmm.
so I posted on social media um, when you could contact me, how you could contact me, and how long you would be able to contact me in reference to it, and where you could find any other information after the fact. And I called it and I shared, I said, here's my grief plan, everybody. You can meet me at this address from 3 o'clock to 8 o'clock from this date to that date. And I made sure in the midst of my planning that I was there at those times every time for that. I gave people 5 days and that
Mm-hmm.
was it. Because why? I needed to heal as a mother. I needed to be there for my children who lost their brother.
Absolutely.
And I needed to be there for my parents who lost their grandchildren, their grandchild. And we had to heal from this. I cannot cater to other people because this is what we have to do when we call positive selfishness. So, positive selfishness is a term that we use, and it's because at some point you have to be positive or do what's necessary for you. And
Mm.
understanding self-care is not selfish.
And I was
And
going.
so,
That's exactly what I was going to say when you finished saying that. Like self care, like knowing, like boundaries, boundaries,
yeah,
boundaries.
I did. I said it. I told people they can call me, but don't you text me. I mean, you can text me, but don't call me.
Well,
If
I'm
you
glad I
call,
texted you
we
then.
got the.
Woo.
Yes, right. And you know what? People honored that. Some people, because I understood, because I'm a pastor, I understood that once everything was over, like you said, Jack, the real work was going to come. People and all of those thoughts and positive, think about that, guys, for folks who've ever lost someone, positive thoughts that are coming towards you all day long for
Mhm.
about a whole week. You feel strong, you feel better, you feel okay, like you can make it. Then all of a sudden, when it's over, you start feeling struggles. Well, guess what? Who's still praying for you? See,
Mhm.
this stuff and being positive and being kind and being helpful to people, these things infuse us in life,
Mhm.
which is why I have different things to teach people to think about others, to pray for others, to do these types of things, where we do a well check Wednesday.
Mhm.
Every Wednesday of the week, right? Where we check on at least one person that we know,
I
and we
like
ask
that.
and affirm, ask how's life going, and affirm it's okay to say how you really feel. And that is what got me through. My skills of understanding that grief was going to hit me, and it was going to hit me in its stages. And I kept trying to figure out, well, what am I going to get angry about? And listen, because I understood the stages of grief, the skills, I was like, well, what am I gonna be mad about? Because I understand death happens, and but oh, it came. I was
Mhm.
mad at him. How you take that darn pill from somebody? I don't told you you're not supposed to take it. So think the stages, and when you understand, you can process better, right? I didn't say it was easy, but
Right.
you can rationally process what's going on, so that you're not thinking, well, what's wrong with me? Why can't I feel better? And so then you can figure out, okay, this is what's wrong with me. I was so frustrated like a week ago, and I was like snapping. I was like, wait a minute, what is wrong? What is wrong with you, Toshiba? Why are you snapping on people? And then I recognized something. I said,
Mm.
it's my son, such and such. I said, that's
Mm.
why. That's the root of it. And I said, okay, now that I realize the root of it, then now deal with that emotion, Toshiba. Deal with how you're feeling about that. And what can you do concerning it? And what I did was choose to feel what I was feeling, let it out, got me a good cry out and a good talking out. And then I was able to move forward and move in kindness and empathy toward others.
And a couple things that you talked about, like, I didn't have this plan, but there was some things, traditional things that that families want to do, and we always have a wake,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I wanted to do that for some folks in my family. But then one day I woke up and I said, self care, self preservation, capacity. And I said, I know this is something that we usually would do, but it's not something that I'm going to put myself or my children through. So I
Mm-hmm.
nipped it in the bud. And
Yep.
I felt so good about it. To somebody else, it may not have been the biggest thing, but that was the first step for me of taking my life back, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. This is even
It
before the
does.
funeral, but it was the first
Yep.
step for me to say, no, I'm going to say no to this because it doesn't feel good for me.
The new no. That's what
The
people, I
new
like to
no.
say. The new no. That's what I be calling it now. It's the new no. It's not the
It's
old no that I used to tell you and still do it anyway. It's the new no where I
it's
mean no and I
where
don't
I
do it.
mean it, right? And that was the first step for me to say, I'm not doing this to please anything or to please anybody or anything else. Like this is like you said, it was the new no. It was the I'm saying no because I have to say no. I need to say no. I want to say no, and I'm doing it for me. Right. And then that's when I start talking about it's okay to say no. We can't be
Yeah,
everything and we can't for everybody and we can't be everywhere. And so
absolutely.
I started to set that boundaries right there because I knew that when everything started to quiet down, I had already to me felt like I was already a different person, but I knew there would be a new Joe Shalon, right? That I would say to
Mm,
myself, if it's anything you didn't say to Joe Shalon, if it's anything you didn't do to the old Joe Shalon, you can't it stops here. So you're not going to be able to do it. Like I'm a new person. I'm different
mm-hmm.
in those things that I dealt with, or like you said, say no, but do it anyway. Moving forward, I'm not doing that anymore. That it's
Absolutely.
all about self-care.
Absolutely.
And so I love that you had that plan. Now, you guys, it's 10:30, and I thank you for coming on for us. We only usually do an hour, but it's a couple more
Oh,
things
wow.
that I need to get out for T Rice. So we're gonna stay a little bit longer. So you're welcome to stay with us. I hope you're getting what you're needing. If you don't, I'm sorry because I'm getting it right. I always say it's for me, and I'm gonna share a little bit with y'all. But we're gonna stay on a little bit longer because it's something that Sheba said earlier that I want to go back to. We talked about you was talking about the grief plan and you were talking about peace, but when we were prepping, yeah, I was writing down stuff.
I see.
You
I
said
thought we were just talking.
yeah, you thought we was just talking, right? But you said, what does my mind stand on you look like? What is the peace like in my
Mm-hmm.
mind? We
Yes.
talked about that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Talk
Okay.
about
Yeah.
that a little
So
bit.
perfect. Oh, perfect. Oh gosh. So, so we do life groups, and so the life group that I teach is, it's called Milk, Meat, and Maturity, a spiritual growth course. But each
Say it
course
again.
semester, Milk, Meat, and Maturity, a spiritual growth course. And
Okay.
so with that, we choose a topic every quarter that we're going to talk about for 2 months. And so April and May is the topic that we chose because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. And so the topic for April and May is protecting the mind, self love, self care. And
Mm,
so um, what um, what that came about was I was as I was studying and prepping, I said there's a scripture, of course, that says he will keep you in perfect peace, right? If your mind is stayed on him. And so what that looks like is I begin to ask God, what does keeping my mind stayed on you look like?
mm,
Because it might look different to other people. And so I had to ask a very inward question, right? What does keeping my mind on you look like? Somebody might think it's just reading the word. Someone might think it's just reading a book that's positive. But what I had to find through these last 2 months, as you know, when you teach something, you end up living it out too, is that I found out keeping my mind stayed on God actually look like when I become frustrated or when I find myself in a place of frustration to take a minute to pause
mm-hmm,
and to breathe and then go find something that pulls me back into the center of myself to keep my joy and to
mm.
keep my peace. And so whenever I found myself outside of those realms, because we have to do what we need to do from day to day. And so what I do is focus on how to release what my purpose is for the situation that I'm in. Because
Mm,
I deal with a lot of people all the time, like all day, and and multiple times throughout the week. And so whether it be in person or online or emailing or whatever. And so I had to ask God, what does me keeping my mind on you look like? Because some people might think that you need to be in a place of prostrate in prayer and all that all day long. Well, if you got to pay your bills, you're not going to be sitting somewhere in prostrate. So you can ask God, what does that look? Is my conversation with people that have frustrated me, instead of me saying something that's not really going to be helpful in the conversation, what if I put my mind on you and say something positive that they might benefit from it? Right? What if when I'm frustrated and I'm coming home and I've got to do dinner for children or whatever, well, Nicholas cooks for me, but I'm just saying examples. What does that look like? And so I thank God because he showed me that keeping my mind stayed on him so I can stay in perfect peace is that whenever I'm in a situation or circumstance that I feel that I begin to lose that peace and that calm, it's a shift. Shift your mind and find the peace in God to change the situation or to change the narrative in which you're in. I hope that made sense at all.
It does make sense, and I'm glad that you said it, because yesterday on Philip Friday Live, I talked about, when I talked about it before, but there's a difference between like reacting and then responding, right? And so when I'm trying to keep my mind stayed on God and I want to react, right? Because reaction is when it just comes out and you don't think about it.
Yeah.
I've learned to have, like, of course, we should have scriptures, in our minds, like we can say, but I turn on some music, and I start to to be able to calm myself down and think about, like, God, like, I need your peace. I need your strength. I need you to speak for me. And so I've learned to do those things, just to turn on a song or to have a song always in my heart, because we say things all the time and we use those scriptures, or I just keep my mind on you. And that's not the truth. We don't always have our mind. We don't always have our mind. So I'm thankful that you said that shift, because we have to be able to have that shift.
Joe, I forgot the other part that's just as critical. The ending or the end part of that scripture, it says, because he trusteth in thee. It's over in Isaiah, and so it talks about, thou will keep thee in perfect peace whose mind is stayed on thee, because he trusteth in thee. A lot of times we remove ourselves from the trust factor of God. Why are we not trusting a situation that causes us to be aroused, upset, and frustrated? Now, these are normal human emotions that we should have, but we shouldn't reside in those emotions of frustration and anger and fear. And so when we begin to feel this frustration, anger, and fear because we're trying to keep our mind in perfect peace, where we have to ask our question, the other part is, wait a minute, where did I lose the trust? Where did I lose the trust? Isn't that what we ask our children when they start doing foolish things that you told them not to do? I ask mine at times, when did you stop trusting that what I told you is real?
That is so good. And you know what? I'll be honest, because you know what we do? We stop scriptures where we want to stop them, right? And so we don't keep going. So I'm so glad that where did I lose the trust? Where did we lose the trust that allowed our mind to shift from peace?
Yeah.
That's good.
So you keep the peace if you keep the trust.
Listen, y'all, she was trying to take up the whole day.
Not.
Keep the peace if you keep the trust.
When you stop trusting that God will take care of your needs according to his riches and glory, when you stop trusting the fact that God has given you these children and he himself will take care of them. I'm in a situation right now. I told somebody, so instance, how's your kids doing? I said, well, actually, God and I are co-parenting right now, and he has his children full time. They were like, what did you just say? I said, God and I are co-parenting right now, but he has his children full time. I had to, because I was losing my peace. I have to trust that he said that if I train them, in the end, they won't depart. That end does not have to look like while I'm still on earth. That end does not have to look like for the week that I am in. That end may look like where I am physically no longer there. Their end is not here yet. But I know in the end of a thing, going back to what they knew. As
That
the
is
young folks
good.
say, period.
Period. Don't they say something like period, poo, whatever that means? But yes, period. That was good. Co-parenting. We are co-parenting, but God has his children full time. That's good. That's good. Okay, listen, I can't keep you guys long. But it's one more thing that was a couple things. It's one more thing I want to talk about. And you guys, so now y'all know what we have to do. We have to have Toshiba back. She's gonna have to come back, and we're gonna have to keep
Absolutely.
talking about it because mental health does not stop because
Oh,
May
yeah.
ends, right? Like
Absolutely.
mental health, this is Mental Health Awareness Month, and this is the time where people are having more conversations about it.
Yep.
But mental health is important, and people are probably thinking, you guys have talked about so many things, like we didn't talk a lot about mental health, but you have to listen to what we're saying. This is all about mental health. It's about emotional growth and emotional
Mhm.
healing and emotional
Mhm.
freedom, because the purpose is to live free, to be free, and for our minds to be free so that our entire bodies can be healthy. Like I'm telling you, I work a lot around mental health as well. But when you lose a loved one and you're dealing with grief, you really start to understand how important having a healthy mind is. I used to tell God all the time, Lord, I thank you for keeping my mind, because if my mind wasn't healthy, all those thoughts that try to come into your mind, right? All those things that try to come up against you when things happen, because people think it's just someone dies, right? And so even though that part is hard, and that physical person not being here,
Mhm.
there's so many emotions tied into it that every day it's a struggle, right? And every day you're going through a different part of the grief, right? Like you
Absolutely.
said, you was thinking, what would I be mad about? But it came. What would I be angry
Mhm.
about? But one day it came.
Okay.
It comes without an invitation,
Yeah. In
right?
ways.
And it comes in waves, and it comes without sometimes any, like, you don't even know it's going to show up. Like it just, no, it doesn't call and say I'm coming tomorrow. It just comes,
Yes.
pops up without an invitation. Right? And it can happen at any time. You can be sleeping,
Mhm.
it can wake you up out of your sleep. You can be in the shower, you can be
Yep.
driving your car, you can be on camera, off camera, at the grocery store,
Having
you
a great day.
having a great day, and it just comes. The other day I said something, and my son said, "What'd you say?" And I said it again. I was in a state of, I was a little mad, and I said to my husband, who's no longer here, but I said to him, "I can't believe you left me. I can't believe you left me here. Like, I cannot believe you did that." And I said it out loud, and my son said, "What'd you say?" And I said it again, and he said, "Do you think Daddy would have left? You think he wanted to leave you?
A
You think he
trial to
wanted to
lead us.
leave us?" And I said, "Well, no." And he said, "Are you just gonna sit there and make yourself upset?" Right? He's like, "Are you just gonna sit there and allow yourself not to be happy?" And I was thinking, well, woo, he's on a whole different level than I am, right? Thank God for his grief process.
Because
But
we
I
put
was
it in
like,
them.
it comes in waves and things, and
Mhm.
like you said, this co-parenting thing, I thank
Oh,
God
yeah.
for the co-parenting. I thank God that there's days where I have dropped off the face of the earth somehow, but I'm thankful that you said it. I'm thankful that he always has, he's 100% parenting all the time, because the
Absolutely.
things that he has given me to instill in him,
Mhm.
he gives it back to me.
Oh, they do.
I'm
Honey, they
having
do.
When I'm
I love
having those
commitment,
days,
honey.
he
Woo.
reminds me of who I have told him
Mm-hmm.
that God is. He reminds me
Absolutely.
that I have told him that God keeps his promises, right? And so he brings it back to me. And so I'm so thankful that we're that because of the way that my mom raised me and because of now
Mm-hmm.
my relationship that I have with God, that I can instill those same things so that he knows who God is for himself. So he
Absolutely.
reminds me all the time, like, listen, lady, now how you gonna tell me this? And then you sitting up in here crying, and there's nothing wrong with crying, but what he's telling me is don't sulk in it, don't
We
sit in it.
can't stay there.
You
We have
can't
to be
stay there.
resilient. You have to be resilient, and people need to see the transfer. So many people are taught, particularly males, right? And I never once told my sons that you could not cry. I have another close brother in Christ that we grew up in church, and he lost his wife 4 days before I lost my son. And he understands grief and cries when necessary, and so it's about being able to allow people to be vulnerable, and
Mhm.
vulnerability does not mean weakness. People who are vulnerable are actually very strong people who are secure in themselves and their emotions and who they
Mhm.
are, because there's no need for us to act like we don't have emotions, like we are so fearful and strong that nothing can penetrate us. But yes, it can. If my God cried about going up on a cross, understood the pain that came with it, and
Mhm.
asked not to endure it, then who am I to not embrace my own emotions when I know I'm walking into a painful situation? And honey, I love all the mothers out there who usher and everything else. So other people, I've heard some of the weirdest things from people that they kind of tell people, don't suck those tears up. God got no.
Mhm.
Release that energy and all of that pain out. God gave us tears for a
A
reason, and He
reason.
does something with those tears. Read your Bible. He does something with those tears. Allow Him to utilize that pain and that hurt to bring forth something beautiful. Bring something beautiful. You could. I'm telling you, anyone who knows that I love my whole company is named after my children.
We're gonna talk about that in a little bit. I got one more question to ask you, and then
Whew.
we're gonna have Toshiba back, and y'all gonna have to come back. So you said something about living your brand.
Oh, yeah. Okay, my kids. So when I say that, it's because I have a company called I'm Well, right? And I'm Well is an acronym for I'm wholeheartedly enjoying living life, right? We're not talking about perfection, but we're talking about resilience. And that's what I try to do is we try to celebrate people being happy, and that's hooray, a positive, productive youth. So we've got all these cute little acronyms that are going on. We are a case management training and consulting firm that where we focus around the 8 dimensions of wellness. We help people create a resiliency plan around this, but most importantly, we are those consultants that no matter where you are in life within those 8 dimensions, if you need to navigate through a system, if you need to be able to brainstorm some things that you're going through, we're there for you and we help you do just that. I absolutely love what I am doing. And so we provide training and from mental health first aid to parenting classes. We go with folks to parent teacher conferences, to IEP meetings, to
Mhm.
section for just a plethora of resources and things that we do. We provide resources for folks, all of these different type things. It's always a privilege for people. It's one thing for people to want you or utilize your services because they've heard about it, but it's another when your family and your friends believe in who you are and your skill set and what you know and the information that you can actually share. And so I am excited with that because I live well. I
Mhm.
live self actualization every day. Right now, I'm living it. And living self actualization means I'm not wondering what should I be doing with my life. What more can I do with my life? I know what I'm supposed to do in my life. I am living that part of my life, and I receive the assignment of my life, and I continue every day to walk in that assignment, and I do it and would do it for free. If you told me, JSpire says to Sheba, I'm gonna pay all your bills, make sure you can go on your trips and your vacations when you need to, what would you do? And I would say exactly what I'm doing right now.
I love it. I love it.
Self-actualization. So when I say I live my brand, I live my brand, and I apply whatever I'm teaching to others, whatever skills that I've learned to others. We connect people with therapists. Yes, we need a therapist. Everyone needs a therapist. I have to say this, just one. You need a therapist for two reasons, and I'm going to say this really quickly. And I'm going to tell you why I have my therapist, okay? So when my son died, I didn't have to figure out what I was going to do. Guess what? It just fell on the same time of the same week that I saw my therapist. When things started moving and life was going through the transition of grief, so you need these therapists for two reasons, okay? One, because you have challenges. A man that is born of a woman is of a few days and full of trouble. We have troubles. We have challenges. And so you need to learn the skill set on how to deal and handle the challenges and make sure you're processing it well so that the mind stays okay, so that the rest of the body can do what it needs to do. The second reason why you need a therapist is because you are successful. Some of us don't know how to process success.
That's good.
Some of us don't know how to handle all the good, mercy, and the grace that follows us all the days of our life. How many people out here that we've already seen who have completed suicide and very successful? I'm not saying that they couldn't handle their success, but there was something else that was going on within the chemical imbalance where that came into play, right? There's a chemical imbalance there around people living with a mental illness. But sometimes our social cycle happen and pushes us into a mental health crisis. Sometimes these folks who get success really fast and it hit all at once and you thought it was going to be one way and it came at you another. Who are you talking to that is trained professionally on a master's or PhD level to help you handle these encounters? Come on, pastors. You are successfully walking out the purpose of God for your life. Who are you sharing this stuff with that is a person who can help you balance being a faith leader, dealing with your family and community?
I love it.
That's why I have a therapist. And that's why I live my brand.
I love it. I love it. So Toshiba, you guys, we are winding down, but Toshiba, you are a mental health first aid
trainer. I train nationally.
Right. Trainer, right? Okay, I want to make sure I say it right. And we want to talk a little about substance abuse, and I want you to share information about the National Healthline. This is so Toshiba is going to talk about how you guys can find her, how you can support her, and how she can support you. So she's going to take some time to give some of these resources. It's really important. And if we may say, well, I don't need that. Well, write it down. We may not need things right now, but we may need it, or maybe someone else that may need it, and you may need it and you don't even think you need it.
Absolutely. Yes, absolutely. I know our time is really wind up, but I do want to share. I do train in mental health first aid around the country. What mental health first aid is, it is a skills-based training that teaches you the signs and symptoms and how to help someone in a mental health crisis or a non-crisis. It is a nationally certified, just like CPR, first aid, but however, this is actually for the mind. It helps you recognize, so you can, there is a national site called mentalhealthfirstaid.org, but you can always reach me as a trainer and go to imwell.network, which is where you'll be able to find our wellness consultants, and we have a national helpline that's there to help people who are answering calls, for people who have businesses, all these other things. So basically go into these businesses or to these organizations and churches, and we train people in mental health first aid and also teach them about mental health 101. And so there's so many things we can do, but I guess the easiest way to do it, Joe, is ToshibaRice.com. And ToshibaRice.com shares everything that I do across the board of where, and it'll link you to the different websites that we have. I completely forgot. I forget about myself sometimes, right? Because I'm doing other work. But yeah, it's in one spot. And so basically, this training will actually, it'll show you what to say and what not to say when you see someone having a mental health crisis. There has not been one class that I have not taught across this country that where someone has not responded to me within a week or 30 days that said, oh my God, I use our training. I use our training. I use our training in church, in ministry, in business, in their organization, in their homes, in their family. Right?
Right. And I am thankful because unfortunately I haven't been trained by Toshiba, but I completed a mental health first aid training some years ago, and it was
Oh,
awesome.
good.
And I just thought about it. I was like, wait a minute, I've done this.
Yep. It's new updated curriculum. So we have a whole
So,
new curriculum
so a
out.
whole new
You
curriculum.
can do it virtually. Yeah, we don't have to
Okay.
be in person anymore. So I'm sure when you did yours, it was 8 hours of a whole course. Now they get to do 2 hours self-paced, and then
Okay.
they get to do a instructor-led training with me. We can be virtually, or we can come and we can do it in person. But I absolutely love it.
Listen,
It's
I'm
an
telling you, I
amazing
learned
class.
a lot. And it's, and I'm glad that you said that not only what to say, but it also teaches you what not to say, because
Oh yeah.
sometimes we mean well, right? And we're trying to help
Yes.
and we're trying to support, but sometimes the things that we say, it could be triggers, right? And so it comes
Absolutely.
off in love,
Absolutely.
and it's genuine intention, but that person is in a state where they can't accept that. So it is important. It's a really good class for you guys to take. And I'm not just saying it because it's Toshiba, but I have taken the class before, and it really does help you to think about what not to say, even though we mean well. So I think it's
Right.
something you guys, grab your church members, do it
Mm-hmm.
through the church. You can
Will
do it
come.
through you can do it
Yep.
through civic leagues,
Yep.
book clubs, whatever
Yep.
you are a part of. It's really good information to
Yeah.
know. We always think that it's not going to happen to us. It's not going
Mm-hmm.
to happen to someone that we know, but we don't know. And so we want to be prepared, because it's not it's going to happen to them thing. It could also affect us. And I
Mm.
always say,
Yeah.
don't wait until something affects you to speak
Right.
up about it. Do it now.
And Jay, we have a class that's coming up through our ministry at Great. So if you go to ToshibaRice.com and click on the Greater Faith link of one of the three things, and you'll see in there we have a course coming up June 24th.
Okay.
The fourth Thursday and the fourth Saturday of June, through Greater Faith is offering it. I donate that training time to Greater Faith, which is our ministry. But it's different and then it's the fourth Thursday and the fourth Saturday of every month if you go through Well there. So just, yeah, and we offer the course. So it's at a different rate. But yeah, so it's just for people to know there is courses coming up in June for both youth and adult. And I forgot to share all that, but just go look it up and call me. My number to reach me is on the website and everything. So
So you guys, I
thank you
have
so
it
much.
here, ToshibaRice.com. And so that's the easiest way to go and to gather all of the information. Listen, you guys, this has been an awesome show. We're definitely going to have Toshiba back because real life, real talk. You guys, life is life, and then we are living real life out here. And, sometimes we are nervous about sharing things. We're nervous about having these conversations, but we we were not made to do life alone, right? And we do not have to do life alone. That's what I really want to. We've talked about a lot of good things. We've had a lot of good topics. We've had real conversation, but that is what I want to drive home to you guys. We do not have to do life alone. And you can set boundaries and still have support, because that's what support is about. It's about respecting those boundaries as well. It's okay to do that. Listen, you guys know I love you to life. I am honored and so thankful that Toshiba has taken the time, that she has donated her time to JSpirations Live today, and to to share. COVID, um, COVID, it has some ups and it has some downs, but part of it is that it gave us the opportunity to really utilize virtual, right? To utilize technology where we can be together and we can be in different places, but we can still have great conversation and we can still support each other. I want you guys to join me on Friday for Fill Up Friday Live every Friday at 8 o'clock p.m. I'm thankful that I have a lot of our Fill Up faithfuls with us today. Thank you for supporting us. We believe in real talk. And so beginning in January, we are starting a new series called Men Talk 2. I am so excited about that series. We are going to hear from some of our men. I'm always on here. I'm always talking, and God has blessed me with a plethora of friends and family and associates, and just so many resources in our women to bring on. But we want to hear from the men as well. Their voices are important, and we need to hear them. So that new series, Men Talk Too. So let your men folk, the men in your family, know that those conversations are talking. I love you guys. I want you to enjoy the rest of your day. It's okay not to be okay. We don't have to live life alone. It's okay to set boundaries and know what your capacities are, right? And what you're able to take on right now. I want to say, as always, we want you to be JSpire. We always end that way. But today I want to end by giving Toshiba the opportunity for some last words for our show and some words of motivation.
Last thing I just want to say, as we continue to be JSpired, be positive, be productive, and live well.
We love you guys, and be JSpire.